Greetings and welcome to a special edition of aBlogtoWatch Weekly. In this show, myself and David got to travel to Geneva, where we met up with Jean-Christophe Sabatier, the Chief Product Officer of Ulysse Nardin, to talk about the incredible Freak family of watches, a full retrospective in the next 45 minutes of all things Freak. I got out of this some real nuggets about everything that this brand has done and has achieved. Hopefully you will identify those nuggets too. So sit back, grab yourself a cup of tea, and enjoy the show. Greetings and welcome to a special episode of aBlogtoWatch Weekly. This episode we are doing a retrospective on one of myself and David's favourite watch designs. David, tell us where we are and who we're speaking to.
So we're speaking to Jean-Christophe Sabatier of Ulysse Nardin, the technical and product development guy at the company and responsible for a lot of the cutting-edge stuff that we've been seeing from the brand. And we're at the brand's boutique in Geneva during Geneva Watch Days. And we were just discussing as we were preparing for this recording, what should be the subject or the topic. And I thought to myself, it kind of has to be the Freak. I would love to talk about the Freak because it's just such an important piece of watch design, and it has a place in modern watchmaking history. It technically is the way that I look at it, and I think a lot of the others look at it, is that this was the watch that really broke the rules. Before the Freak, the watches used to be like round and flat and simple, and the crown on the side and two hands and whatever. And the Freak was called a Freak because it's a freakish watch. You look at it now, and even today, the original Freak of 2001 looks incredible, like out of this world. Imagine to try and go back to 2001 watch design, just a bunch of dive watches and boring dress watches, 35mm in gold, and then this thing comes out, right? So, right, Christophe?
I perfectly agree.
And do we know where the word Freak came from?
Yes,
for the
of
watch?
course, we know.
Go on then. Do share.
Yes. As David mentioned, the Freak is an incredible concept that is marking the beginning of a new era for the entire watchmaking industry. I mean, in my opinion, the Freak is really an iconic timepiece. I would call it the first hyperwatch. And the guy who was behind this incredible launch is, of course, Mr. Rolf Schneider, who has decided to join all the forces inside the company, and we will come on that, to find a lot of know-hows outside the company in order to reinvent the way to conceive watchmaking. He wanted something that nobody could imitate. And by the way, there is no imitation of the Freak. It has never been possible because it's too complicated. And this is very particular and shows that this timepiece is just unique and exceptional. And I'm very happy to dig a little bit into this product and explain why and how the Freak is so particular.
So do we know when it was first conceived as an idea?
Yes. So I did not answer precisely, but the name first.
Yeah.
Freak has been chosen by Rolf Schneider himself, who bought Ulysse Nardin during the 90s and relaunched the brand after the quartz crisis period and re-established that brand beyond the few and rare exclusive manufacture. Ulysse Nardin has been a manufacturer producing its own calibers and escapement at the end of the 19th century. He has relaunched the brand. And the Freak, for him, was the way he was considering this project as a signature project, showing, okay, we are coming back. Ulysse Nardin is coming back. We have conquered all the oceans during 1 century from the middle of the 19th to the middle of the 20th century. We are now going to reinvent the watchmaking of the 21st century through the Freak. So the story is the story of it has been a long process. It has been a teamwork. It started in 1999 with a genius developer, a woman called Carole Forestier. She attended a Grand Prix competition that was supported by Breguet. The greatest watchmakers were participating. Loiseau, Daniels, Journe, everybody was there. She was the only woman. She was very young and she won. and she won with a particular concept. It was an orbital caliber with a barrel around the caliber in order to save space. And it was an orbital caliber because she was, for what I understand about her legacy, because she has a very strong legacy in the watchmaking industry. She has worked for several brands. She's really keen, specialized in orbital calibers. It's really her motto.
So what is an orbital caliber?
It is, for example, a carousel.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a caliber that is moving on itself, if I may say. So the idea is not to consider that, I will define it like that, it's not to consider that the caliber is here to move some ants, it's to consider that the caliber is near to display something spectacular and to show mechanics. So she won, and then she has been hired by Ulysse Nardin, by Rolf Schneider, our CEO and owner at that time, and Pierre Gigax was in the head of the R&D department. And she spent several years working on this project inside Ulysse Nardin. It has taken several years because it was, we have faced difficulties. For what I understood, the main difficulties were related to the power reserve, for example, because of the fact that the barrel was outside the caliber. But some other great watchmakers have also contributed to this concept, and particularly the genius, the master, Mr. Ludwig Oechlin. He was really the partner of Rolf. With Rolf, he has launched many astronomical pieces, high complications at Ulysse Nardin. He started also to work on this concept in order to try with the design and development team to make it happen. He brought his own touch. And his idea has been to say, okay, it is an orbital caliber, but we could even try to do more. We could try to use the movement to display time. So the idea here is not only to have something that is rotating mechanically, but it is also to say, okay, we are going to remove ants, and the movement is going to indicate the notion of time. He has also decided with the development team to modify a little bit the construction, and they've put the barrel on the back of the caliber, and they came to an impressive construction, which is quite different from any other timepiece, a kind of UFO, a piece that you set from the bezel. And when you turn the bezel, in fact, you carry all the entire mechanism.
Right.
And below the mechanism, you have the barrel. And here you have a lot of space. You can reach 7-day power reserve with a manual winding.
With a huge barrel and a huge mainspring. So the way people should imagine the first, and it's true for every freak ever, is that there's no crown. So
Yes.
you look at it and maybe your eyes don't even recognize the fact that it doesn't have a crown on either side of the case. And after a while, you guys introduced a little latch that you had to flip up in between the lower lugs, and that would unlock the bezel. And as you're turning
Yes.
the bezel, the listeners should imagine this is a smooth but hard motion that you have to make, because there's a lot of friction in the movement, so you feel like you're turning this huge machine. And the way the first freak and every freak since would indicate the time is that it had a long bridge over what used to be the dial, and that bridge had basically the going train and all the different wheels.
Exactly.
And even the balance wheel at the end. So you had almost every component of a movement put onto a bridge, except for the mainspring, and this whole thing would make a rotation around the face of the watch in an hour, and you had a little arrow on a different disc that would indicate the hours. And the way you would wind the mainspring is that you had to flip the watch around and you had to rotate the case back, right? Or part of the case back. And I believe that even the mainspring was exposed. So you could see, try and imagine a mainspring the size of a case back. It's 3 times the size of a regular mainspring, and that gave all the torque. Because usually a minute hand and an hour hand are just light things, but here you're turning the whole thing around itself, and that's what makes it orbital.
Exactly. The first mainspring, and most of them that we use inside the Freak collection, they have 2 meters length. And at the beginning, it has been very difficult to find a supplier that will be able to produce something like that, because the barrel is really powerful, and it's due to this absolutely unique way to conceive the piece. And if you want to, you have to do tabula rasa in your head when you are a watchmaker if you want to reach this level of creativity.
You need a clean sheet. You cannot go and say like, hey guys, I just saw that bass movement with an automatic winding. Let's turn that into a freak. No, that's not how it works.
Exactly.
It starts with a genius idea like that of Miss Cara Forestier-Casapi, who had this idea, and then a number of other geniuses of the watch industry to come together and turn it into something that actually works. And I feel like we have to appreciate the fact that this is not just an object that ticks and talks and looks cool. It has to be accurate and has to be reliable in the way that it tells the time.
Exactly. And in addition to all what you said, the fact that the caliber in itself is unique, the concept philosophically is unique, the design, the name, which is just incredible. I mean, it's a crazy name. It is also about materials and escapements.
Why is that?
We had many escapements inside the Freak collections that were revolutionary, but let's speak 2 minutes about the first one. For example, the Dual Direct. The idea here, and it's again a team work between different people, particularly Mr. Ludwig Oechlin and Mr. Pierre Gygax. They decided to redefine entirely the concept of a modern timepiece, including for the escapement. At that time, if you consider the size of Ulysse Nardin, very exclusive, very small, a startup trying to launch a revolutionary escapement, it's quite a little bit bold, if I may say, and it needs a lot of courage. Their idea has been, we want to try new materials for the escapement because we believe that we could improve the level of durability and precision through modern materials. They have studied different type of materials and they decided to go for the silicium.
This was before anyone had silicium. So today it's quite ubiquitous because we see large groups invest heavily into this material. But in the late 1990s and early 2000s, this was a totally new avenue of development.
I agree. And I very often, the word of pioneer or innovator is used for very small improvements. Here we are speaking about a technological rupture that has been brought by a small startup with few crazy personalities. And they have chosen the silicium. They had the courage to patent it, to fight against very big brands in order to push their innovation to the commercialization. And I can tell you that it has been kind of a big story.
We can talk about that a little bit.
I mean, yes, it has been a competition. You had at that time 4 competitors.
Rolex, Patek,
Swatch,
and you guys.
And Ulysse Nardin.
Yeah.
So can you imagine? I mean, compare the size of Ulysse Nardin, a very exclusive manufacturer, to those big guys. We arrived first. We have launched the first timepiece in silicium in this industry with a silicium escapement in 2001 with the launch of the first Freak. And we will come back on that also maybe in the coming minutes, because we have not only done that, we have continued this pioneering of the silicium technologies. For example, we have been the first brand to launch a silicium hairspring in 2007, which is another significant breakthrough. And this has been made possible, in fact, by the door that has been opened also by the Freak, because the Freak, it's also, I mean, it's a promise, it's a concept in itself, and everybody at the manufacturer has had to enter into this way of thinking, highly disruptive. It's a revolution, in fact.
No limits.
I mean, yes. And this is why I believe that the product is just incredible. You will find 6 generations inside the Freak collection. So in, 21 years, I would say a very rich history in terms of product launches. Each new Freak is carrying all the DNA of the original piece, but most of the time is also bringing a new innovation into the market.
And so just to go back to something you touched on there before we advance through a number of those progressions, to what extent was the introduction of the Freak greeted by the rest of the watch world as that will never work, versus the watch world going, blast, I wish we'd thought of that first? Was there a generic feel of, ignore them, they're not big enough, they're too small, they'll never make this happen? What was the zeitgeist amongst the rest of the watch world at the time?
Well, funny enough, I discussed yesterday with some journalists who attended the first launch of the Freak.
Right.
It was at the Basel Fair in 2001, and I met 3 of them, and they all remember that day. You know what I mean? Very precisely. There are some days that people, they remember because they believe that these are important moments. It was at Basel Fair, and Rolf Schneider himself and Ludwig Oechlin, I mean the master, I mean one of the best watchmakers of this industry, they presented themselves the concept wearing big masks, freaky masks, and they entered the show, near the show, a place, with instruments playing, drums and things like that, just to attract the attention of the people, and they made a happening, very simple and authentic, by themselves, a show. They call it the Freak Show. They had a very small presentation, welcome to the Freak Show, and it was a little bit like a circus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody was first curious, attracted by that show. And then I think the people, they thought that it's just unbelievable. And this show created a lot of buzz.
What people need to imagine is that all the crazy watches that you see today, like the Jacob & Co. Astronomias and all these amazing, or the Richard Milles or whatever, it was unheard of to turn away from that regular and much loved concept of these are the hands and they tell the time, and then the watch is flat and you don't see, to just show a wheel or a bridge, or to have an open heart dial. Not even an open heart dial existed. There were skeletonized movements every once in a while here and there, but those are very rare, and sometimes conversions from pocket watch movements or whatever. So for a big brand to go to Baselworld and be like, hey guys, this is what we're doing and it's a freaking freak show, was groundbreaking in so many ways.
Exactly. And I can tell you that very few people were ironic seeing that show and listening that buzz. Even the big brands. And the competition for patenting all this innovation has been fierce, because it was a race against time. And today, we are probably the brand in the industry who is, let's say, the number one user in terms of integration of the different silicium technologies. We produce in our watches, we have 90% of our watches equipped with silicium escapements. Basically, 90% of the timepieces we produce are manufactured movement. All of them are equipped with these escapements. But we also use silicium air springs. We have some silicium oscillators. We also play with silicium for dial marquetries, for example. We have patented technology which is incredible, which is called the diamond seal, which is a diamond coating treatment on top of the silicium in order to reinforce the silicium itself.
Why was that necessary? Because it was fragile, or?
Yes, I think it's a very good point. Of course, as any material, the silicium has some advantages and drawbacks. So if you take first the advantages, you will see that the list is quite long. It's light. It's amagnetic, it's very durable, it is a monocrystalline material, so it's by definition perfect. You have no waste, if I may say. You have no asperities with the material. So you can create very complex geometries because it is a high-tech way to produce it.
It's grown, right?
No, to be more precise, it's a little bit the reverse than the growing process. Growing process is coming from the liga. With the silicium, you dig, you cut around. So in fact, you take, the silicium is it's a big carrot. You cut some slices. They are called wafer. Then you put some photo text on the. So it's a kind of mask photolitho on the
photolithography.
Wafer. Yes. Yep. And then you have a plasma treatment. And with the plasma treatment, you are going to cut around each piece. So it's very precise. And you can do with the silicium technologies different layers in one unique piece. So it can be complex in 2D, but also complex in 3 dimension. So you have a lot of advantages like that. There is one drawback, is that the material is fragile. Fragile when it's not under tension. Once it is assembled, it's good. But you can break easily the component at the desk level for the watchmaker if you do not use it in an appropriate manner. And the silicium coating is improving the level of, say, resistance of the material when you touch it, when it falls, but also it is even improving the durability of the product, which is already very long.
Because it's lubrication free, right?
So yes, I did not mention that element, which is in my opinion the most important advantage, is that in addition to all what I said, it is lubrication free. So of course this allows us to, for example, I will take an example very simple. We present our innovation through the Freak collection, and particularly the silicium, but then we use some of them for the rest of the manufactured calibers that we sell. Our flagship caliber is the 118. It's equipping the diver or the marine collection. It's, let's say, the volume caliber. We are using silicium escapements, and we are using the diamond seal on this movement. And we offer a 10 years warranty on silicium components, for example. And this is because it is lubrication free. So it is really a material that is considered now as a must. You have many brands that are using silicium escapements today.
Or
Hairspring, few, because this technology is still patented and reserved. Today, if you want to buy a watch with silicium hairspring, you will have to buy a Patek, a Rolex, a Breguet, or Ulysse Nardin.
That's very cool. And again, it's interesting, just circling back to the Freak, that you said that it was a race to the top when you guys and all the competitors were developing the silicium technology in the early 2000s, but they had to develop the silicium technology while Ulysse Nardin developed a Freak around it.
Exactly.
So it was not just how do we make this escapement out of this crazy high-tech, literally high-tech material, but also how do we construct an inside-out movement that rotates around itself and displays the time in a way that's never been done before. So I'm sitting in front of like a 4-page document listing, I don't know, let's see, well, it's like 15, whoa.
It's the family tree.
Okay, so that's 8, 12, 16, like 20. This is like 30 something different Freak iterations over the course of 21 years. So, okay, so the whole thing started with the Freak 1, as it's called. But what were the major steps over the last 20 years in the history of the Freak that are like standout moments for you?
Well, today, so you have mentioned this family tree that you have in front of you with all the models that have been introduced by Ulysse Nardin. You have a very selective club of Freak owners, and just to give you an idea, you have 5,000 members into this club. So you have
in 21 years.
Today, 21 years, as of today, 5,000 units has been produced by the manufacturer.
That's the annual production of Richard Mille, just to give guys a
And I think it's important to underline that, because this product is still very exclusive and esoteric, if I may say. In the meantime, as you mentioned, you have different variations. So we can maybe select few of them just to introduce, let's say. So the first one, 2001, first silicium escapement. It was gold and platinum at the beginning. 2007, for example, you have some different variations of the Freak. Introduction of the diamond coating silicium, introduction of the silicium hairspring.
The Innovision.
In the Innovision 1, and then in some variations of the Freak collection, like for example the Blue Phantom. Then we have enlarged a little bit the offer inside the collection with different type of calibers. You have some flying carousel, like Freak Cruiser. You have some centered 60-minute tourbillons, like Freak Lab. And you have also some flying carousel carrying a flying tourbillon cage, like the Freak Phantom.
Because why not?
Because why not?
Exactly.
It's
exactly the principle of the Freak.
Yeah,
why not?
That's a very good point, actually, even if I didn't make it myself, which is that, it is just a case of why not?
For most brands, why not? Because we can't.
This is why not, because actually we can. I do think it's fascinating. I'm absolutely stunned by the numbers that you're talking about, 5,000 over 21 years. And it does make me think about just where the Freak sits in the world of this kind of high horology and high tech in relation to, as David mentioned, the likes of Richard Mille and others. I suppose we've seen others this morning, the likes of Moser, MB&F, Grubovorzi. To what extent is what is happening now, especially with the independence that the brand now has, all about you gearing up to actually not necessarily just increase the production, but push the brand in a direction that you see brands like Richard Mille and others, that they've led the way with. To what extent are you now trying to say, wait a minute here, we've got this thing, it is the Freak. It is, that's just the name of it. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yes.
And this is why you should be interested in it.
I think your question is very interesting because it is related to what is our vision of the future for the industry and what is our product strategy related to Freak and also related to all this world of independent brands that are performing quite well today. And I'm happy to be part of that club now. We are independent since few months now. And I believe that this independence will also let us continue to build on the particular mindset that you have always found at Ulysse Nardin. We have never been a marketing brand. And Mr. Rofflinder himself said, Ulysse Nardin has never created business-driven products. It's not in the DNA of the company. We are a brand of engineers. We like engineering. Historically, all the benefits that made Mr. Schneider in this company have been reinvested inside the manufacturer, the laboratory, the R&D department. And I would like in the future to continue and to perpetuate that. When I ask the people what have been in this industry, people from outside, the technological breakthroughs, the specific moment of rupture, they say, okay, you had with the Freak the rupture on calibers and escapements, and then you have later a rupture, for example, through Hublot or brands like that, with material combinations, case constructions, things like that. And I believe that the role of Ulysse Nardin is always to consider that design-wise, we try to bring something, we try to be edgy, to be modern. The Blast, for example, is an example of that type of products, but the most important for us is coming from the inside. Today, we are 90% selling manufacturer movements, and our wish is to turn to the 100%. And when I say manufacturer movements, I'm speaking fully integrated movements, including escapements. And we are going to continue to do that in the future. And I believe that Ulysse Nardin should be considered. The specificity of Ulysse Nardin, if you compare Ulysse Nardin to Urwerk, De Bethune, brands like that, is that we are a little bit in the mind of the people in between. We are an historical maison, but we do not have, let's say, we do not display our history like Vacheron Constantin or Patek Philippe or Breguet. We are not ultra niche brand. We are, let's say, a medium-sized brand. We produce on a yearly basis a little bit less than 10,000 calibers. So let's say we are medium-sized. We are not a big brand, and we are competing with very, very big brands with, of course, obviously, lower means. So this requires a specific culture, a specific way of doing if you want to perpetuate your own tradition. And my personal hope, I really believe that Freak doesn't get today 100% of what it deserves. I really believe that this piece should be one of the iconic pieces that any collector should have in his collection.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned Urwerk and De Bethune because we've just seen them yesterday, for example. And what makes Ulysse Nardin special is that if I go to De Bethune or Urwerk and I don't have 50,000 or 80,000 in my bank account to spend on a watch, then I feel like I cannot be part of this brand and this culture. Whereas in Ulysse Nardin, I buy something with the UN 118 movement in it, and then I'm part of all this innovation, the silicium, all this pioneering spirit. And it's not a Freak, but I'm still like less than 10,000 watches. So I feel like if the De Bethunes and others of the world, like the tiny indies, were geared up into a manufacturer, they would be a lot like Ulysse Nardin, like fully vertically integrated. It's not like, here we have a 5-axis CNC machine that cuts out bridges, and then we put those bridges on top of things that we buy from others, and we call it the manufacturer movement.
I totally agree.
They would be like, how can we throw a bunch of specialized machines to cut pinions and wheels and all this other stuff and make stuff out of silicium that nobody ever heard about, and then just make it all into manufacture and hopefully sell enough watches to support the whole thing. Whomever who likes watches would not want to be part of that, right? And it's here in front of us, and this is why I'm happy the Freak still exists, because it's like the most spectacular, most blatantly obvious exhibition of everything that Ulysse Nardin is. But if you look a little bit deeper, then you realize that, oh, it's actually in a number of other watches that don't cost, I don't know, 50,000 or 80,000, but cost 20,000. And sure, that's a lot, but it's still half of what like a Daytona costs in the second-hand market these days. And the difference is just incredible.
So you're clearly excited about the freedom that independence has given you. Is there a particular area, obviously you've noted the Freak and how you think it should be a watch that every collector should have, that, and I certainly don't disagree with that, but is there a particular area maybe of customer base or supply chain or marketing that you now feel more able to push into because you actually have the freedom to do that, to explore your best ideas, to actually explore the new Freak ideas that you have?
I would say that when you want to do something good, you need to do it by passion. And when you are independent, it is of course related to figures, but not only. You can express your level of passion, your level of integrity towards your entrepreneurship culture in your way, even if it is not always, let's say, coherent or easy to understand. To come back to what David was saying, for example, let's take the pricing policy of Ulysse Nardin. You mentioned that, I mean, today you can buy a Freak for 30K. We have a Freak X, which is at the entry price of the collection, that is dedicated to young watch enthusiasts. We want to speak to this clientele, not only to, let's say, the loyal collectors, who own different Freak generations of Freak. We believe that Freak has also a mission to recruit, and we want to do that. It's easier when you are Ulysse Nardin because there is a freedom that has always been used, as you mentioned, price-wise. We have always used a fair price positioning for our products. The reason why is that the people who are setting the price historically inside the brand were the engineers. Because we had no marketers. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the guys they were saying, this is what I believe, where I believe the price should be, because I would like that price to be there. And I can tell you, I joined the company 6 years ago. When you check the logic in the price positionings, it's not always, it's not, yes.
Engineers rarely multiply things by 2. They work with like a few percent here and there. It's not like, let's make it like twice as large, because it hardly ever works.
It's also what I like with Ulysse Nardin. It's an engineering brand. And I believe, even if I have to say that when we were part of a group, we had a high level of independence in terms of possibility to design and decide for our product strategy. Honestly, I really mean what I say. But you can even do more. I mean, I'm sure that if Rolf Schneider have not been an independent owner and CEO, the Freak will never appear on the market. Because it has been a very difficult start at the beginning. The watches were not waterproof. The bezel that you used to set the time was turning on itself. So we had to improve it and create new generations with a locker, for example. Yeah. So you have many stories of improvement also, because in 2001, it was not the industry of today. You had many means, many technologies that were not on the tray. So you had to play with what you had at that time. So we had at the beginning, I have to say, few quality issues on the Freak.
The first generation Freak had the top of the axis, the pinion around which the whole thing rotated, stick through, literally go through the sapphire crystal on the front of the watch.
Exactly.
So you would see a polished end of a freaking like an axle, which is not very refined by today's standards, but that was the only way you could fix it and have the whole thing not fall apart, right?
Yes. In fact, you had no design. It was like a concept watch. In fact, we have launched and commercialized a concept watch in the market. And this is why also we have been the first in that race, because the decision of the management team at that time has been, okay, we want to win this race and we want to take the risks. And it's also part of the game. And this is why I believe that, to answer your question, I believe that when you are independent, you can take your own risks.
And so what risks do we think we're about to see taken next by the brand? Go on, nobody's going to listen to this, so you can tell us secrets.
And if they are listening, they are not telling anyone.
Well, I will answer. I will try to be very, very
Vague.
no precise. I want to be precise and to make it short also. We have 4 collections at Ulysse Nardin. We have the Marine, which is carrying all the incredible history of navigation instruments. We have the Diver, which is a sports technical watch. These are more, let's say, volume-oriented, and what we want here is, of course, to propose something that is design-wise attractive and, in terms of technical content, reliable and practical, wearable. Then we have 2 other collections. We have the Blast and we have the Freak. So what we want to do in the future as an independent, on the Blast collection, our vision is to revisit all the traditional know-hows of the company of watchmaking into contemporary watches. So I'm speaking about, chiming pieces. We have launched the Blast Hour Striker. I'm speaking about astronomic pieces, for example, the Blast Moonstruck. In the future, you could see enamel, micro-painting. We have already done many pieces setted, many pieces skeletonized. So I could mention many types of know-hows. Even métier d'art could be possible, but into a very contemporary design. So this is the way we see the thing. And we believe that this is very consistent with what Ulysse Nardin has always been, a brand at the forefront of the industry. And the second axis is through the Freak collection. We call this piece Laboratory on the Wrist. I was saying that when you wear a Freak, in a certain manner, you wear a prototype. So we have 5,000 prototypes worn around the world with a starting price point of 30K, some prices coming very high because we had some very specific requests also with a very strong technical content with prices that are really touching the sky. So we are going to continue to display technical breakthroughs through the Freak collection inside the future. We have 2 areas where we want to play particularly. The area of the silicium, as you understood. And there is another area which is coming very strong, which is the blades. So the blade, the flexible, the notion of flexibility. For example, if you take the last concept watch that we have presented inside the Freak collection, it is called Freak Next. It is an incredible oscillator made of 32 blades in silicium on 3 layers, with no axis, something that is constantly moving at a 12 Hz frequency. And today we reach 72 hours power reserve with this 12 Hz frequency. We would like to work on it, try to improve that in order to increase the power reserve. It is the kind of battlefield where we like to play. It's very difficult, very technical, it takes time, but I'm sure you will see something interesting in the future in the Freak collection.
You hinted there that perhaps some of your customers are also challenging you directly to do things at the real high end with specific requests or specific developments. Can you speak into any of that in terms of the freaky requests you get to be done to the Freak?
Yes, we have some people who are repeated buyers on the Freak collection, and even few of them, they want something that is unique. It can be design-wise, but it can be also technically wise. What we try to do, but we do not communicate really on that, is that when we introduce a concept watch, it may happen that we do something for this type of customers, something unique. Normally a concept watch, and when we define a concept watch, it's never thinking about business. It's really thinking about a window that will display our know-how and our risk-taking ability. But then, it's always the difficulty, is that when you are at the forefront, what you propose is opening new doors, but is also carrying some risks. Some people, they want that because they understand that. You know what I mean? Some innovations that have been presented inside the Freak, when you look at the innovation itself, you do not understand really the purpose when you see the innovation. Then you need several years to understand exactly what it brought. For example, I'm going to take an example. We have presented in 2017 the grinder inside a concept watch called Innovation 2, and then we have used the grinder into the Freak Vision. The principle of the grinder is based on the blades technology, is that it's twice more efficient than any traditional oscillating weight. It's a patented innovation. But at the end, you could argue, who cares? A traditional winding system, it's winding very well. I mean, you don't need to do more.
Yeah.
At the last SIHH, or Watch and Wonder, sorry, we have presented the Freak S with 2 oscillators, architectured with a 20-degree angles, with a vertical differential, very complex, inspired by the automotive industry, 69 components, including 20 ball bearings for this module only. So you can imagine the level of technicity for the miniaturization of the concept. This watch, it will not be possible to make it automatic if the grinder will not have been invented and patented 4 years before. And when we have created the grinder, we did not knew that we would do the Freak S. You know what I mean? So that's the idea. And you have many collectors that are, let's say, they give tribute, they value this effort, in fact. It's like when you are in the middle of the ocean and you discover, you know what I mean? You don't know where you go, but you go somewhere.
Yeah.
So just to bring it full circle when you're touching on innovation there, going right back to the beginning when you were talking about patents, is there things that within the engineering you're inventing that you're like, we really should patent this, but if we patent it, the opposition are going to find out about it, so actually we keep it all to ourselves to explode out in the way that the Freak did originally? Is there a skunk works in the background where somebody's working on whatever comes after the Freak?
Yes, because it is always a decision to take. Do you want to attract the attention or not on something? And anyway, I mean, we are, I mean, for our size, we own a lot of patent.
Yeah.
But if you compare with big players, I mean, we cannot compete.
Yeah.
I mean they have dozens of lawyers and, you know, intellectual property counselors and engineers in patents working for them. They have budgets with no limits.
Yeah.
It's not our case.
Well, I'm very glad that you continue to be a company that is dominated and run by engineers and not lawyers. So thank you very much for your time. It has been wonderful getting a retrospective on the history of the Freak. David, any concluding words from yourself?
Sell your kidney or your firstborn child and just get a Freak. Do be one of those for 5,000. That's my only advice.
Yeah, it is a rather intriguing number.
Isn't it?
It's been, I think, yep. It's time to go and break the bad news to my only child.
Yeah. Look, darling, there's this great escrow service on Chrono24. I have to ship you off and they send me a watch. It's going to be fine.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And
thank you.
All the best in the launch. And we look forward to what comes next from the brand. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks,
Cheers,
David.
everyone.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us on this special edition with Ulysse Nardin. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can tune into all things A Blog to Watch weekly every week, normally a Thursday. Check us out on your podcaster of choice, and do be sure to check out both aBlogtoWatch.com and to search for all things Ulysse Nardin and check out the Freak for yourself. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.